There's a new appeal from hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. His defense team is seeking his immediate release from federal prison, calling his 50-month sentence on charges of transportation for prostitution excessive. CB Cotton has the details live from our New York newsroom. Good to see you, CB.
Hey, Lydia. Well, once one of the most powerful names in hip-hop, Sean Diddy Combs is now behind bars at that federal facility in Fort Dix, New Jersey, but his legal team says he should have never been sent there for this long. So on Tuesday, in an 84-page filing, Combs' attorneys asked a New York federal appeals court to immediately release Combs and send the case back for a new sentencing or grant him an acquittal. In July, a jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution and acquitted him of the most serious charges, racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the video. This is Justin Paul, and today we're reacting to the news here that Sean Diddy Combs is seeking immediate prison release, and a new filing through his lawyers. He's basically petitioning that the judge's ruling was excessive for, the count of the Mann Act, which is, transporting prostitutes and stuff like that, with Jane and with, Jane Doe and with Cassie. So basically, being found guilty of facilitating, the prostitutes and paying for their travel and all the logistics that come along with that. And they're basically saying that 50 months is excessive, and he's asking for a new judgment or immediate release, which I say is a smart move for him if that's how he's not giving up. So smart move. And as you can see on the screen here, all the more serious charges: racketeering, sex trafficking of Cassie, sex trafficking of Jane Doe, which we do know is 50 Cent's child's mother. We do know that. And he was found not guilty of all those other serious charges. And, he basically in the filing is saying that the judge gave him a sentence as if he was guilty of those other charges, which I do feel like it may have been longer than 50 months, but he's still, petitioning, saying that 50 months is very, very excessive. So, we'll see if he's successful in this. And they're basically saying that the judge, acted like an additional juror in this whole thing here. And my thing is, with like, I'm not sure if, I don't recall if Jane actually set it up, set up some of these meetings and stuff like that. But we do know Cassie, was definitely involved in, setting up the prostitutes and stuff like that, which are all male prostitutes at that. So let's get a little bit more context here.
In the fall, the judge then sentenced Combs to a little more than 4 years behind bars, citing testimony from former girlfriends who said they felt pressured to participate in drug-fueled sex parties with male escorts called hotel nights or freak-offs. But the rapper's lawyers argue this sentence was punishment for crimes that the jury rejected. They wrote in the filing, quote, "He sits in prison today serving a 50-month sentence because the district judge acted as a 13th juror. The judge defied the jury's verdict and found Combs, quote, coerced, exploited, and forced his girlfriends to have sex and led a criminal conspiracy," end quote. Throughout the appeal, Combs' attorneys go on to describe the case as an unfair prosecution of consensual sex between adults. We're monitoring to see whether prosecutors file a reply to these arguments from Combs' defense team, but we know during the trial that prosecutors repeatedly accused the former hip-hop mogul of trying to minimize his actions. For now, Combs remains in prison with a projected release date for early 2028. Lydia.
CB, I'd be willing to bet those prosecutors are going to start working on the reply just as soon as this holiday's over, if they haven't already. Yeah. Great to see you, CB. Merry Christmas to you.
So, of course, I feel like the prosecutors are definitely going to work on a reply to this. So we'll see if um Diddy is able to, get himself out of this. If he's able to get released on time served and, you know, get back to his family. Um I don't feel like his he'll be able to get out and do as much as he was doing in hip hop. Maybe, on a behind the scenes level. Maybe if he changes his business practices that have been is exploited over the course of this whole trial and stuff like that. And it's specifically the narrative that's in that reckoning, that Diddy reckoning documentary that 50 Cent helped executive produce. It was a nasty narrative within that whole thing, and um, they was able to get that footage from a cameraman who was following Diddy up into the trial, and um, I'm not sure if that cameraman was paid by Diddy or not for his work, but 50 Cent was able to secure that footage and piece it together, as well as with interviews from people who work with Diddy, like one of the guys who helped start Bad Boy, and they went on into a lot of different stories of like the relationship between Sean Diddy Combs and his mother, the relationships that he had with certain artists, and whether or not he had disdain for Tupac Shakur, whether or not he was jealous of Tupac and Biggie's new friendship that they was building, and whether or not he was the one who was kind of like the mastermind, or the one who put the whole action of having Tupac killed into play, which I feel like a lot of that was brought on by Pac himself when he got into that fight and they jumped on Orlando Anderson, and how all that played out, because of course, if you in somewhere like Vegas, to where you're after a Mike Tyson fight, you have a lot of adrenaline going from actually just watching Tyson do what Tyson had did for a long time, and you get into a fight with someone who supposedly took a chain from someone that was within death row, or whatnot, and you was a part of, you being a big superstar at the time, you was a part of stomping this guy out. You had to know something was going to come back on you. That's typically how those situations play out. And then you get interviews and stuff like that with individuals like Keefe D, and you get to hear insights from like Suge Knight when he was doing his interviews, and his like his show or his podcast that he was doing from jail. You kind of get more insight on these type of things, because at the time, of course, I was a child. So all of this is kind of nostalgia for me, growing up on their music and stuff like that, and not really having the brain that I do now to kind of comprehend all this type of stuff, and just knowing that these were young men, guys in their 20s, and of course they're gonna make plenty of mistakes. It was a lot of money at that time, um, at play, and a lot of jealousy, man. A lot of people fighting for the top spot, and they just had a lot of batteries in their back, like the Energizer Bunny, and you know, had a lot of juice, no pun intended, as far as, Pac starring in juice. But, a lot of these guys, man, they rose to fame pretty quickly. Even though, like, people like Big, man, it took him a while to kind of get going, but once he got going, he was he was one of those guys, man. Witty with the wordplay, could put a song together. Um, Beats was amazing, man. Knew how to pick the best beats. Had the best, some of the best producers around him, and had good supporting artists. The same as Pac. Pac definitely grew into his artistry, and I feel like a lot of his anger fueled a lot of his creativity, and whether he was being real or whether he was acting, he played his role to a T. And their music is gonna live on forever, even though a lot of it. I remember coming across a bunch of files like years ago, man, of unreleased Tupac music and stuff like that. And it's just amazing, man, that those guys was like in their 20s, man, with that much knowledge and that much know-how on as far as putting those words and ideas into song format, and you know just working relentlessly and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing, man. So we'll see if Diddy is successful in his appeal that he's doing here to get his 50-month sentence reduced, or just to get released. And we'll keep everyone updated. Again, if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.